My Inner Knowing, empowering you to find your compass for the journey. We are dedicated to supporting you to rediscover and trust your natural ability to navigate life each day by sharing insight and experience through the lens of two professional communicators and their guests. We intend to prompt internal inquiry that supports all those willing to explore a unique path.
Well, hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
You know, I'm always better when I'm talking with you.
Oh, yeah. And so today we're actually not in the same state. So if you hear the difference in the microphone, we are not sitting across from each other. I mean, we are on our computers with my laptop sitting on top of a box. So it looks like you're sitting across from me.
Aw, well, that's nice.
Yeah.
So, but let's get to it because today I am so excited because it's touching and I want to know more about your story. But there's this quote that you have told me about many times over the years, and it was on the wall
The journey home.
at the journey.
Yeah.
I was just trying to decide how to describe it, but at the journey home, what you had started as a retreat center, I think, when you put this up on the wall.
Yeah.
And in any event, it's by Chief Joseph, who was a chief of the Nez Perce Indian tribe, sometimes referred in English as the Nez Perce. But his quote has been important to you, and it is, "I will fight no more forever."
Yeah.
And I was hoping you could tell us more about that and why it was so meaningful to you to have on your wall.
Sure. Oh, it's interesting because even as you say it, I'm like, there's like emotion I can feel in my eyes about it. Whew. You know, when I was a young girl, we were allowed to just beat the shit out of each other growing up. And I guess I just thought that's how it was. And I for sure had fighter energy anyway, and was very aggressive to my younger siblings for sure. And over time learned to defend myself. And I also had in my extended family relatives who would hold us down and tickle us, which was a horrible experience for me. And, you know, for me, very cruel. It wasn't playful. It was torture.
Domination.
Oh, for sure. It was domination. And so there was that part of me that learned that, you know, power, peace, and in a really unhealthy way. So when I turned 13, and the reality is I don't remember why, but I remember that I decided that I didn't want to be that person. I wasn't going to be that person who was angry and physically aggressive. And I shifted. And that's not what the "I will fight no more forever" is about, though that's what it reminded me of when I heard it the first time, was that choice that I made to fight no more forever. But what it was then was a choice about how I wanted to walk in the world, but it really was giving up. But I didn't know that it was like giving up because we're too complex, right? Like we're just not that simple. So there was like this part where, you know, I was more, I didn't lose myself, but I capitulated more, or I accepted more of what I didn't feel was right for myself or right for others. And I didn't have the same voice in regards to like standing up for someone or, fighting for justice or, calling out the bad guy, like the bully. When I was younger, I remember getting into a physical fight with a neighborhood boy because he was throwing rocks at our mailbox and and picking on my little brother. and that, part of me was just gone. And as we do, right, when we change we swing the pendulum typically. We don't tend to just, move nicely and unmessily into a healthier state, right? We tend to go.
I think you're talking about that journey.
Right. So I went all, over here. And so while I wasn't fighting anymore, I really became an observer. And I would, fight occasionally, but not aggressively. It was more words is what it shifted, into. And not, again, not often, but when I felt particularly confused or helpless or dominated, that would, come out in me. And for me, I will fight no more forever was a very conscious choice to learn how to fight differently, to learn how to engage with people differently, to learn more about people, to learn about behaviors, to learn about why people did what they did, so that the fighting, whether it was with physical aggression or words, weren't how I needed to fight.
Sure.
And it really was like this reminder or mantra, whatever you want to call it, to remind myself of where I was trying to go. So I think about, for example, this much more intentional choice about, engaging, with someone when I am struggling or when I'm feeling attacked. And of course, it's much more complicated with you since you're my partner, because that fear.
Well, that was a left turn.
Well, not in
I was
my
sure
mind.
you were going right.
Well, I'll go right once I go left.
Oh, that's your left.
Yeah. Because of that fear of, if you're upset with me, that need for me to have you not see me that way, right? So then I feel like this need to defend myself so that you don't abandon me, so that you don't think I'm this horrible person, right? So it gets more complex, with you still working through my lifetime of story about relationship and my value in relationship. I mean, all of those pieces. So no doubt you see my worst sides. It's even different with my children. I'm at a place in my life with them that it's not something I worry about, being abandoned by my children. I believe in our parent-child relationship, and I will always work on it, but I'm still working on that belief that I'm valuable enough to have someone choose me that's a partner. And it's so much better. Whew. Don't even want to go back 30 years ago. I was fighting, 30 years ago in my first marriage, verbally. Maybe even, I have a vague memory of one time just losing my mind over something he said and like pounding him on the chest. I don't remember any more about it, but just can look back and recognize how afraid I was to not be enough. So for me, again, going back, now we're going to go right from where we were going. But if someone should approach me and be angry with me, who isn't you, and someone that I have some relationship with, I can sit there and I can hear and stay present. I've learned, how to do that. I use sensory ways to help my body be present if I'm not sure that I can stay present. So typically what I do if I'm sitting is I'm rubbing like fabric. So whether it's like the arm of the chair or a pillow, or typically it's something like that, but it might be even maybe the jeans I have on or something to help me stay focused and wanting to hear what they're saying. So I don't dissociate, because we can be in conversation where we're struggling and not really be there, look like we're there, maybe even sound like we're there, but we're not there. And so I want to stay present to the concerns that the person has. And so I very intentionally make sure that I stay present and not defend myself, but hear it and understand their struggle and their pain. And these are healthier relationships. I'm not talking about the unhealthy relationships. People that I know that we have relationship, there's respect for each other, and we're trying to get to a healthier place. And then if there's someone that is angry at me about something, like I think about when we went to that restaurant in Westport and I walked up to the ordering station to look at a menu, and this guy thought I was cutting in front of him.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think was it me, you, and Luke, Cameron, maybe?
Cameron. You, me, and Cameron.
Okay, just the three of us. Yeah, because Cameron wanted to go to that restaurant. I don't think you and I had been there, right?
Right.
And yeah. So we were unfamiliar with the restaurant, unfamiliar with the ordering. We didn't really know what we were doing, but I was looking for a menu because we were supposed to be ordering at this place. And I don't remember what the guy turned around, and said to me, but he was aggressive and assuming, obviously, a lot. And I just turned and calmly looked at him, and I don't remember what I said, but something like, it's okay. I'm just trying to see the menu instead of being reactive or angry. And I was good. He wasn't good. He stayed in his frustration. I remember he kept, looking at us while we were eating. And he was just.
I remember. He wasn't going to let it go.
He wasn't, no.
Kind of the opposite of what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And even yesterday, we had a situation with a company where we were trying to get something for Xander, and the customer service piece was so poor. I can't even tell you. For weeks, I tried to get a hold of these people and I couldn't. And then I went an alternate route, which was very successful. And everybody was really responsive to me once I went that route to find an owner. And I remember, and the owner texted me, and he was so afraid that I was going to yell at him. And he's, was saying, if you're open to having a conversation, that's fine. But I understand if you don't ever want to talk to me or us again, whatever, that's fine too. And I texted him back and I said, oh, I'm not angry, confused, helpless, frustrated, trying to resolve something that seemed like it should be so easy, but it's just been so hard. And then he said, I'll call you in a few minutes. And he did. And he still, even though with the text, had this expectation that I would be angry at him, and mentioned it many times during the phone call. And I just said, it's just not who I am. What's really important to me in this particular situation is that other people don't have to go through what I've gone through. if there's any way that this conversation can lead to changes in the company so that people don't have to experience this, that's what I want. I want it for them. I want it for you. And so fighting with you, being angry with you, shaming you, to me does nothing other than reinforce for both of us not helpful things. I want this to fill us both up, right? Not to take from both of us. And so really that for me is what it has become. I will fight no more forever. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't, should an opportunity present itself, where to me it is more necessary, protective, life saving. I'm talking about on the daily, our relationships and interactions with the people in our life, the people that we encounter, driving, grocery stores, restaurants, whatever, that I've chosen to not fight. So that's the mantra that it's been for me. I will fight no more forever. So not giving up, but intentionally shifting how I engage with people. What are you thinking? I can see wheels turning, contemplating.
Yeah, I'm just taking that in. Yeah, it's interesting because in thinking about getting angry at people in traffic and things, I used to be a very angry driver. And it's just, if people sense our energy and they can sense it from a distance when it, is aggressive that way. They probably sense it from a distance when it's kind too. But I was driving back from Kansas City one day to where I lived, and I don't remember what was going on, but I made some guy very angry, and so he was tailing me on the highway, it was dangerous, just crazy stuff. And so I took an exit, and I was angry as a result, and just, you could feel it. I mean, if we'd been in physical proximity, we probably would have torn each other up, is my guess, calico cat and gingham dog thing. So I flip him off, but I'm already on the exit ramp and he's ahead of me. He is watching me. And, I mean, it was right there. It was crazy. He had to sense that. And was it helpful? Was it safe? Did it achieve dual goals? Any of that? Instead of just letting the guy be angry with whatever mistake I had made, if I wasn't paying attention on the highway. And I don't remember there was anything that I'd done, but he was pissed. So anyway, I'm along that path of trying to do better, because for me, my history is I will take it so far, just hide basically until I don't anymore. And then it's from 0 to 10 with aggression.
Yeah.
And I've grown a lot in that respect in the last few years. But I survived as a child and through high school and college with the having to get myself that amped up that I did have to fight. And I'm not talking about actual physical altercations, but I believe that the spectacle of violence gave you power, and it's kept me safe. And so it was just an issue of projecting that negative power energy of domination or subjugation, whatever you want to call it, if there was an interaction that was difficult, like what you're describing.
Yeah.
And so there was this undertow of, if we can't cease what we're doing, it's not going to go well for you physically, right? So I've tempered that through the years with what I do, but listening to you and trying to take your example and learning how to set boundaries in relationships and in interactions with people, and still learning to do that, but learning to do it more along the lines of what you're talking about. I will fight no more forever. I mean, I can stand up for myself or for others or for what I think is right or express an opposing opinion without having to go to DEFCON 10 or send burning negative energy to dominate you.
Right.
And the latest example I told you, I had a guy that I used to work with. I left the firm after a lot of different political, actions by the higher ups. And so there's a triggering piece with the way he speaks to me.
Yeah.
And so he had written this account of a legal argument, that was just scathing, designed to shame me, et cetera, and
Yeah.
so I recognized that was triggering and it was, pushing that button that would go to DEFCON 10. But instead, when I saw him before the hearing, I intentionally just grounded myself and asked him about his kids.
Yeah.
And I think it changed his whole behavior in the hearing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it also allows, and from that most recent trial, we had a judge who does not react well when there's
Aggression.
that sort of aggressive behavior or tension.
Yeah.
And so there's lots of opportunities, but this in particular, going right to his kids and being kind to him. And it wasn't pandering,
Right.
because I do care about his kids and, in different respects, I like him a lot.
Yeah.
So in any event, he was kinder, I think. And even if he wasn't, a lot of, you read consistently, our reaction, we create our reality by our reaction to what we experience,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So we get to choose. And whether it changed his behavior or it was just a change in my perception of his behavior, I felt so much better about the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I walked out feeling, and I still feel like I have more integrity to living the way that I want to live.
Yeah.
In dealing with other people. So it was a really nice stepping stone, and it comes from you.
Thanks, babe.
Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And it only took 10 minutes to say it.
Yeah.
More to come.
Yeah, more to come. I was just thinking about what you shared. Something, I don't remember all the details, but something when you were in court last year and you got upset in the courtroom and just how it stuck with you,
Yeah.
And just that, like you were just talking about the integrity and how we choose to be. And I know sometimes our trauma gets triggered so big, it's very difficult for us to stay grounded. But as we do our work, it gets more and more possible for us. So I just think about that, and just how you felt afterwards and just the comments you've made over the last year about it. And just grateful for you to have a different experience so that you can even just see yourself how you do it differently. Because I think that matters. I mean, I think it's important that we can look back and be like, ooh, that's how I used to handle that. I can do this, right? I think it's helpful for us to be able to see that.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. I'm in an adversarial job. And
Yes.
so
yes.
It's a big learning, and hopefully I can continue. I know that there will be swings of the pendulum, but hopefully it's trending towards learning to make intentional choices about the level that it goes to.
Sure.
And to choose kindness most of the time.
Yeah.
Because what you're saying, and it's not in my job context, but in other contexts, I'm a powerful guy.
Yeah.
and so knowing if it's a life and death situation, that's the time to turn, up to level 10. And,
right.
So it's like, I don't know. It's like for me, and so the whole thing, I love this conversation because it's like a growing into, and it's masculine and feminine. I use it from a masculine perspective, but, masculine power can have different faces, and when wielded wisely with intention, is who I want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Wouldn't that be lovely for all of us?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't remember what you said that brought this to mind, but that remember when you and I and Luke were in my car and we were driving down 35. I don't remember where we were headed, but somebody cut me off. Remember? And it was recently, like in the last few months. And I like toot, toot, toot. And then you guys were like, whoa, you handled that really well. And I'm like, I just responded and stayed in my own story. And I stayed in relationship with you guys, right? In whatever conversation we were having, instead of allowing whatever that other person did to take me out of where I was. Does that make sense?
Right.
And so like my subconscious was able to respond and be deft in my movements and safe, but it didn't like then become the thing that we are now all focused on, right?
Well, I mean, it was dangerous
It
what
was.
he did.
It was. Yeah.
And it's easy for us to go to that, where you would have the emotional reaction afterwards of reliving it, and what, you're not even thinking coherently about what could happen. It just comes out as aggression because of the fear underlying it, right?
Right.
And then you're reliving an event that
didn't
even happen.
Right.
And I've been there.
Right. Yeah. The fear
Me
of
on the off ramp flipping some guy off, and both of us intending really bad things for the other.
Right.
It was ugly,
right?
But was that good for me?
No. Yeah. And I think about the Luke's when we were in Tybee a few weeks ago, and we went to that ice cream shop, and I know you weren't with us that first night, but I mean, we get there, it's, I think like a half an hour before it closes, we're standing outside, we're getting right up to the doors. They're getting ready to close, and we don't know what they're going to do because, there's, probably 20 people behind us. And what's their policy? We don't have any idea, right? Do they just come and say sorry, or do or do they stay open, right, until the line ends? Does it ever end? Do they ever really close? And we finally get, it gets past 9:00. The doors are still open. There's no indication that they're closing. We get inside, and the two people that are in there, they're working fast, trying to get it all done. And Luke and I aren't doing anything in particular, that's different, other than we're not carrying any frustrated energy for having been in line for so long or whatever. And the owner is one of the people, and she just kept giving us like extra things. And it was so funny. And Luke's like, this is crazy. And I was like, yeah, that the woman that's working, this was afterwards, like the woman working with her was like, why are you giving that to them? Like, I don't know. She was so confused. She didn't understand. And so she only charged us like $20 for everything that we ordered. And Luke and I were talking about it afterwards. We were talking about the energy and how we engage with people. And, they're already busy. They're already burdened. We don't need to give them any more energy of being, more, right, for them to carry. We're good. We're the ones getting ice cream, right?
Yeah.
And they're
if we could just remember that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it was funny because, it's like, well, was that really what happened, or are we just making that up? But it was funny because we went back the next day, the three of us, and it literally did cost $10 more than it did the night before. But it wasn't the same people working. It was, some other person. It was just funny. It's like, oh no, she actually did give us all those things. And it was really sweet. But I do think we forget to hold in our context, the bigger picture. I think we get so inside ourselves that we just fight all the time, quietly, overtly, whatever. So again, I will fight no more forever. But, it doesn't take away my justice piece, right? Holding people accountable for what they do that is not okay is still very much a part of who I am and will always be. It's just how I go about.
How do you? Yeah,
Yeah, how I go about doing it is very different. Yeah.
right. And that's what I was going to ask you. When you're in that situation, holding people accountable, how do you keep? And then maybe you don't. I mean, I'm assuming that you're keeping the emotion in check, because if emotion takes over, then we're moving towards aggression, right?
Some of it's interesting. Okay, so there is the sensory thing that I do, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So I'll give a few different examples. So if I'm testifying in court for a case, for me, I am still doing the sensory piece, but I'm using my clothes. I'm typically rubbing like the edge of the table that I'm sitting at, because that obviously the courtroom is designed to be a high stress situation. It's not like sitting in your living room having a thoughtful debate. It's designed to be more adversarial. Unfortunately, I believe that's what it's become. But my body is having its own experience. I'm sweating. My body is afraid. But in my mind, before I would go testify in a case, when I'm outside waiting to be called in, I go through the 4 agreements in my mind, which hopefully I can recall at the moment. Don't take things
Mhm.
personally. Always do your best. Don't make assumptions, and be impeccable with your word. And so for me, it's really about getting in that energy of the 4 agreements when I know that I'm going into a situation that is more adversarial. And then I tell myself, they're just doing their job. It doesn't mean that I like how they're doing their job, but in their mind, they're doing their job. And so it's something that I've practiced over the years, which is seeing their inner child. And it's not making excuses for their behavior. What it does is it allows me to stay in myself in that moment instead of getting drawn into whatever their energy is. And then, when I think about the situation that I have going on right now and have been the last 4 years, when I'm having conversations about that, for me, it is while they're looking for information from me to use against me or trip me up or whatever, what I tell myself is I know the truth of how this has impacted me, regardless of what they want it to be, what they believe it to be, what they can pretend that it could be, what they think it shouldn't be. Like the work that I've done on myself allows me that, like the integrity of myself in really knowing my experience. And so they can try to do whatever to try to make me feel shame or insecure or afraid or, whatever. But I can hold on to that. And so they don't know me. They don't know my story. They think they do. They've decided that they do. They decided that they did from the very first moment. I mean, and, you told me at the very beginning, what their initial reaction was. And you were like, and you don't want to know what it is that they said about who you are. I mean, you gave me some idea, but you were like, don't read that. Don't read that. You don't need to go and read that. cruel and unkind. And it's not like it doesn't obviously hurt still to think about it, to know that someone feels like they need to be so aggressive to get me under control. Does that make sense? To be so
Sure.
shaming to try to control my behavior. But it's not going to stop me. Even if as I sit here, it brings up that deeper pain of those experiences when I was younger about being dominated or shut down by people in my extended family. And so it's all connected. I'm aware of it. I've done a lot of work on it. And I just continue to train myself and my body to stay as present as I can.
Yeah.
And Castiel, the cat, who doesn't normally come over when I'm crying, is now right here. It's like, what is going on? So
They're so funny that way. They really sense.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting, difficult, again, not saying this is easy work. It's just who I choose to be. And I will continue forever working on it.
Yeah. No, what, babe, what comes to mind are, I remember, and I'm sure I did it myself too, but I don't know. Like I said, it's for me to stand up for myself used to take just to the point of DEFCON 10. But there are people that, will tell somebody off and then come to their group or whatever, their family or their social group, and brag about it,
Mm-hmm.
about lighting somebody up. And I got it. And you've seen in stores or other places people demanding a discount or a free night stay, or they want free air tickets or whatever it might be. And sometimes they get it
Mm-hmm.
with that behavior, but they're just tirading and screaming like children.
Yeah.
But then they're taking that and they're proud of, or stating that they're proud of how they behave. But for
Yeah.
me, when I've tried that a couple of times in life and didn't get anything near what I wanted other than a shit sandwich, and I don't feel good afterwards. Not
Yeah.
really. You can
Right.
say that and beat your chest and, stomp around the fire and, all those things. But in reality, in the dark of the night,
Yeah.
you're just an angry person,
Hurting, afraid.
hurting
Yeah.
and turning to anger for your protection.
Protection. Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you follow that path, then you're just repeating that cycle repeatedly,
Mm-hmm.
daily.
Yeah.
And I guess it comes down, and not lording myself out there as, oh, thank goodness, that's not me, because sometimes it is still. Like I said, I want to be moving towards using energy wisely and feeling that I've lived with integrity and kindness as best I can,
Yeah.
and not be angry all the time, because being angry all the time, and I've done that before, it
Yeah.
hurts and it will kill you.
Yeah. Yeah. It will.
Some disease or cancer or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So,
It's interesting. My thought process, and this isn't all the time because I'm not fully present all the time, but when I am, and I am, intentional about the space I'm walking into, the energy that I'm trying to convey is safety. I really want people to feel safe And so in those even adversarial situations, it's still my intent, even if they're not wanting that for me.
Why safety, babe, instead of peace or love or calm? Why safety?
Because I think peace and love and calm can still be dangerous to people.
Mm.
I
Tell me
mean,
more.
well, some, and this is a really big topic and we only have a few minutes left, but some people grew up in a house that appeared calm and peaceful, and it was truly anything but. Maybe it was for 95% of the time, but the explosions could be so big that the person never really experienced true peace because they never knew when the explosion was coming. And so for some people, they need chaos because that feels safer than peace or calm. And so I used to think that that wasn't true until I started doing this work. And then I realized that that is not true. That peace and calm can feel very scary, and love can feel very scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. As well. Again, there's so much condition often on love, and people use that word love along with violence and shame and so many other things. And so for me, there is safety's first. I mean, and peace and love and calm are all behind those things. If that makes sense. And I think I do my best to try to convey all of them, but safety is actually what I think of first. And so, what does
Sure.
that person need to feel safe? What do they need to feel safe? I want them to feel
Yeah.
safe.
Well, you've got Jedi mind power for sure. You and your Jedi mind tricks.
Thanks. I think it's just energy. I think really it's just something that I've worked on cultivating over the years. And maybe that's all the
No,
Jedi stuff was managing energy. I don't know.
well, of course. Anyway, I like to say it because it's fun to think about it. And seeing you as Obi-Wan Kenobi is just like, oh, yeah. So I know we've just got a few more minutes, but let me ask you this, Obi-Wan. Kaha, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
When we first started to talk about the quote,
Mm-hmm.
and we were visioning where it was at the journey home on the wall there in the corner by the fireplace. And, there was like this, I will fight no more forever. And, when you say the quote, you could hear my voice, emotion does come up.
Yeah.
What was that for you? Why is that emotional today?
Because I want it for all of us. I want all this work, that we're doing, what I do in my practice, retreats, the podcast, whatever, all the corporate stuff, it doesn't matter, whatever the venue is, right? I want us to learn, that we can be, in this world with boundaries, because it isn't no boundaries, boundaries and safety, that we can learn to be in relationship with each other in, a non-violent way. I just don't think we're taught how. And I think people are so afraid to do it differently because they'll feel unprotected and not safe. And so for me, it's emotion, but it's really, hope and, wanting that for us all, because I truly believe that life is so much more safe and connected and joyful, even in the hard times, even in the struggles, even in the traumas if we can practice learning to live in this energy so that it is more readily accessible to us. Yeah. So the emotion of hope, freedom for all. Yeah. True freedom, from ourself and our story and the story of others.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love you.
I love you too. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah. Thanks, babe. Thank you for joining us today. We are excited to explore life with you. We encourage curiosity, self-growth, and we strive to be more compassionate every day.